I think most people are genuinely learning anatomy the wrong way. And I'm gonna just show you the way that I do it. I'm gonna guide you through the process because I really think like this was a game changer when I was first starting to learn. I remember a few months ago, maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, when I realized you can learn more than just human anatomy, right? The word anatomy doesn't only encapsulates humans. And that's what we're kind of made to think when we think of drawing anatomy. We automatically think of humans and body parts and, yeah, the structure and everything. But everything has its own anatomy. The microphone that I'm speaking to right now has its own anatomy. I don't know, my water bottle has its own anatomy. A human, of course, a horse has its own anatomy. Everything has its own anatomy, right? And I think a very nice goal as an artist, a very nice goal to have, is to memorize as much of the anatomy of everything and anything as possible, as many things as you can, and increase your visual library capacity, whatever. I think that's a very nice goal. And a few months ago, as I said, I realized that you can do this, and learning anatomy is not only human anatomy. So I got a little carried away, and I started learning the anatomy. Like when I say learning the anatomy, it's kind of tricky, right? Because we're only used to copying stuff. We're only used to looking at a photo and just copying it without really knowing what we're doing. Because after we're done copying the photo of, let's say, an object, let's say you're drawing a microphone. After you draw it from a photo, you will forget about it. You will forget the way it works, the way it looks like, and you'll need another reference to be able to draw it again. Learning anatomy is the act of memorizing, like, consciously with intention, trying to absorb all the like visual information that we're seeing. And this is very possible, but you gotta do it with intention. So right, you don't need to have a superpower for doing this. You may think you have bad memory, but in reality it's just that you're not doing it with intention. So if I look at my microphone, if I only look at it, I'm not gonna just suddenly memorize it, right? I'm gonna get a little deeper into this in a moment, but if I just look at the microphone, I'm not gonna memorize it. But I need to observe it. I need to truly pay attention to the way, to the structure and the way things work, to really be curious about the way the microphone works and every little part. Okay, why is this part here? What is the purpose of this? Because everything has its purpose. And when you are doing things without thinking about it, you start guessing. You start adding a lot of gibberish to the thing that you're drawing, which is not a good thing at all. You should be 100% deliberate with everything that you draw. And this is not only for, of course, microphones, or this is also for human anatomy, especially for human anatomy. And yeah, here's the thing. When I realized, again, that you can draw a lot of things, my first thought was to try to draw everything I could. So everything I had on my table, I had a lighter sitting on my table. I would look up like random pictures of things on the internet. So I would, the same day, I would draw a lighter on the same canvas. I would draw, I don't know, a drill or some random stuff, right? Some mechanical stuff, some machinery. I would just get kind of crazy with it, and it almost felt like I had ADHD. Like looking back at the drawings that I made, it took me months to realize, okay, I'm not actually doing anything here. Then I got obsessed with drawing guns, and let me tell you what, like, this is the tricky part. You get good at this really fast if you do it with intention. And I'm going to explain to you about this in a minute. I was really getting carried away because I got so good at drawing guns from imagination in so little period of time. Then I run into a bit of a problem because I remember thinking, okay, when I was the other day I was drawing, like this was 5 months ago, I was drawing guns and I was drawing people with guns, right? I At this point, I haven't even studied human anatomy, only guns, right? Before even starting to learn human anatomy, I was learning to draw guns. What do you think happened? My guns were amazing, super accurate, super realistic, but I was basically drawing stick people because I didn't know the way the anatomy looked from different perspectives, and I was really struggling with it. So I took a little break from guns and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna focus on people. I'm just gonna focus on human anatomy for, I don't know, for some months until I get good at it. And has it paid off? 100 fucking percent it has paid off. I've improved my anatomy, my human anatomy, so much in such little period of time because I focused on this. The thing is, when you try to draw multiple things, when one day you try to draw guns, the other day you try to draw people, the other day you try to draw this, or in the same day, your brain can only store so much like short-term information, right? You gotta get good at something first, like get good at drawing people first, and after months of learning to do that, you're not gonna forget it. You're not gonna forget how to draw people. You're gonna be pretty good at that, and you can then move to drawing other stuff. That's when your brain is going to allow you to retain that information. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. Otherwise, you're gonna forget things, and it's not a very good way of doing it, right? You have to be patient. You have to have a lot of self-control to be like, man, I want to learn how to draw horses, but right now I'm in my learning human anatomy stage of my drawing journey, whatever. So it takes a lot of willpower. Well, not a lot, maybe, because the cool thing is that you do really improve very fast, and that keeps you motivated. So it's like, oh, I'm just gonna keep going. I can estimate from like my current skill level anatomy and stuff, because it's been like around 4 to 5 months for me to be able to move on. It's gonna take me another, I want to say 3 to 5 months. It depends, right? Because there are still like micro things like human anatomy. By the way, the reason I think you should study human anatomy first before moving into anything else is because it's also the hardest, and it's what personally I'll be drawing the most regardless. So I might as well get good at that, right? It's better that for me, it's better to draw super accurate and amazing looking humans and people and anatomy, and bad looking guns, unrealistic guns, than the other way around. Because it's just kind of embarrassing. Yeah, you can draw many things with like humans. Like, it's just the more complicated things. It's very complicated. I think drawing people is like the most complicated anatomy thing you can do, you can learn. So I recommend you get that out of the way first, and then you can move to the other things, which are going to be way, way more easy. Learning anatomy, like, it takes months, but learning to draw other things is gonna take you. It's gonna take you weeks at most, or days. It is insane. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Mastering anatomy is gonna take you months, if not like a year. But mastering other things, like, how long is it gonna take me to memorize this microphone? Which I have, because I've looked at it 100 times and I've done a conscious effort to memorize it. If you haven't and you want to, it's gonna take you maybe a day. You can't be this fast when learning human anatomy. It just takes a lot of time because you have a lot of parts, a lot of connections. The human body is really complex. The same thing with animals. And at that point, it's just depends of how much you want to get into like the anatomy. And no, I actually want to be the best artist who draws dogs or cats instead of people. I don't like drawing people. I want to draw dogs. If that's you, go for it. But just know that it correlates. Like, you need to study that a lot, because even if you've looked at something 100 times, let's say you had, like, I've had cats for over 12 years in my life, right? And I know if I don't study them, if I don't actually take the time to analyze them, I'm not going to be able to draw them from imagination, even though I've looked at them like thousands of times. And it's going to be the same thing for you, for anything else, not only for animals, but also for people, right? Why don't you know human anatomy if you've already looked at people thousands, hundreds of thousands of times? Because you need to do it with intention. You need to do it with the intention of actually observing and retaining the information. You can go a lifetime of looking at people and not learning anything. I can be looking at this microphone right now and not learning anything. You just need to like turn on this switch in your brain of, okay, I'm going to retain this information to draw from imagination. I came up with this analogy that learning anatomy is really, really similar to learning a song, to learning the lyrics of a song. Because you can listen to a song for years, to the same song for years. I've literally thought about this like the other day, and not fully memorize the lyrics. Maybe you memorize the chorus, or maybe you memorize some of the words, but there's going to be some words that you didn't get, you didn't hear properly, and you need to look it up in order for you to remember them, and to like maybe multiple times, right? Because sometimes maybe this happened to you. You look up some of the lyrics of a song in Spotify, then you forget about it, so you have to do it multiple times until you no longer forget what the lyrics are. And it's the exact same thing when you're studying human anatomy or anatomy in general, right? So what from now on, when I say anatomy, is overall anatomy of things. And the interesting thing about this song analogy is that, you may know that when you memorize the lyrics of a song, you usually are not going to forget about them. I remember the other day I was listening to a song that I haven't listened to in like over a decade, and I still remembered the lyrics. It's like, whoa, I'm really surprised I didn't forget the lyrics after so many years. And this is because your brain has a lot of capability for this, but you gotta kind of turn it on. You gotta look up the lyrics, so to speak, which in this case is just mindfully observing the thing that you want to study. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm drawing a random pose. Let's say I'm drawing a person sitting down. In this context, we're using this analogy for you to look up the lyrics. In this case, look up the information that you need to draw this person from this perspective. You need to ask yourself questions about the thing that you want to draw. So for example, let's say you want to start with the head. Okay, you draw the head, you draw the neck, but then you don't know how to connect the neck with the trapezius. You don't know where like the trapezius insertion kind of begins or connects. So you have that question. Okay, how does the neck connect with the trapezius? So you're going to look up for images or resources. I like using like 3D models for this because I can rotate them around. And you're going to look up specifically that. How does the neck connect with the trapezius? Okay, so the trapezius are like the upper traps are coming from behind the neck all the way down to like the scapula, right? So it's like, oh, okay, like these questions, you gotta kind of answer them yourself, and you gotta answer them visually, right? It's not just like asking ChatGPT, oh, how does the neck connect with it? No, you gotta look at it yourself. And so after that, you're gonna know how to do that. And now you're gonna find another bunch of random questions like, okay, now I know how the neck connects with the trapezius. Now, how does the trapezius connect with the chest or with the shoulders? And then you answer yourself that question again. And after you've answered so many questions and you know, oh yeah, the trapezius connects with the shoulder this way because of the scapula, and then the shoulder is kind of below the scapula, and they kind of connect this way when you rotate the arm and stuff. You become more knowledgeable about these things, and you can explain these things to people or to yourself, and then you'll realize, oh, okay, I actually know a lot of this. And I know I say drawing from imagination a lot, but more than drawing from imagination, this is drawing from knowledge. This is drawing from the knowledge that you have. And as I always say, I really think this is important for you to kind of understand. When you're drawing, what you're doing is just a display of your knowledge, of the knowledge that you have on that thing. So if I'm drawing a person, this is just a display of all the knowledge that I have, right? I'm not trying to guess what a person looks like. I know if I'm drawing something, it's because I know what it looks like, and I've answered myself a lot of these questions that I just kind of talked about, right? Just like imagine you're listening to a song and it's like you have this question. Oh, what did the person say here? I didn't get that word. So you look it up, you answer the question. Oh, okay, it actually says this. It's the same thing. When you're studying human anatomy, you have a lot of these questions. So fucking many of these questions. And it's going to take you months. It's genuinely going to take you a long time. But after you're past that stage and you want to learn how to draw microphones, it doesn't take too long. There aren't many questions aside from this, especially if you're drawing like more mechanical or boxy stuff. I don't know how to explain it. Like less organic things. It's easier to memorize them, and as long as you understand how they work, that's also a very important thing. It's going to be way easier for you. But yeah, the initial point of this video was just to tell you, hey, focus on one thing at a time. Don't study like a retard and just try to draw as many things as possible in a short period of time, because your brain is not going to remember those things. So just focus on drawing one thing And if you're gonna start with one thing, I really suggest you start with human anatomy, basically. I went from drawing guns and like, oh yeah, I understand guns. Like I remember I downloaded this game. It's called World of Guns, something like that. I'm just not sponsored or anything, but I really like that game because it allows you to kind of disassemble the guns. When you are able to disassemble something and look at it from the inside and understand the mechanism, you are going to understand it, so you're going to be able to construct it better. And also, this goes without saying, but you need to know perspective for this. If you've got to this far of the video and you don't know perspective, what the fuck are you doing? Go learn perspective right now. Go draw 100,000 boxes and you will eventually kind of get it. Because here's the thing, most people, I want to say most people, right? It's just an assumption, it's just a guess. But I think most people who are also trying to learn anatomy haven't even taken the time to properly learn perspective. And when you don't know perspective may seem like, if you haven't studied perspective yet, I'm going to assume that you find it a little bit trivial and that it's not super important. And it's like, man, I don't want to draw boxes. I want to draw people, right? How is drawing boxes gonna help me to draw anime girls, right? Because I remember I was thinking the same way and I refused to learn perspective because I thought it was gonna be boring. And I was like, okay, how does the boxes translate to people? That's my question. And here's the thing, something that you need to know about perspective is that it's not about guidelines, it's not about mathematics, right? This is what I hated. Like whenever I saw someone studying perspective, I would hate it because I thought they were doing some mathematical stuff. And I was like, man, I just want to draw stuff. I don't want to need to study these things. What I realized is that perspective, you don't need to study, you just need to draw boxes. That if you ask me, because a lot of people ask me, okay, how do you draw, how do you practice perspective? You don't need to practice it, you just need to draw boxes and it will eventually click. Draw boxes in as many rotations perspective as you need. Draw like vanishing points and stuff, but it's just that. Do that for an entire year and you will master it. And the reason this is so important is because it's going to allow you to draw things in 3D space and rotate them and like place things in like a three-dimensional space, right? It's like you are going to be able to fully materialize things and make them like rotate them and materialize them in any way that you want. And it is a really important skill that you need to master. I actually studied perspective for an entire year, and that's the only thing I did. I only practiced boxes and nothing else because I didn't know what else to do. But it eventually paid off. Like I'm not saying you need to go 1 year without practicing anatomy and just solely studying perspective. But here's the thing, back to the lyrics analogy, right? Remember I told you that learning anatomy is pretty similar to memorizing a song, learning the lyrics of a song. Well, learning perspective would be the equivalent here of learning the language of the song, right? So like imagine you want to learn a song in English, but you don't know English. You need to learn the language first, and this is what perspective is for. This is the equivalent. If you don't know perspective, that's the equivalent of trying to learn a song and not knowing the language, right? You may memorize the lyrics, but you're not gonna understand. It's just not going to click. It's not going to feel the same. Hopefully you're with me here. You understand what I'm trying to tell you here. Perspective is just like the foundation. It's the equivalent of learning the fucking language. And after you're done with that, you get to a point where you're good enough at perspective and you don't need to touch perspective ever again. Just like the same way you learn a language, right? So perspective is more like it's not a drawing skill. Perspective is not a drawing skill itself. It's more of a visual skill because you start to see the perspective on things even in the real world. It is really cool because it is exactly like a language. Because even after you stop practicing perspective like mindfully, what's gonna happen is that whenever you're drawing anything, whenever you're drawing anything in 3 dimensions, whenever you're drawing a person, you are going to use perspective. The same way that, okay, English is not my first language, all right? But when I was studying English, I was doing like the boring stuff. I was doing my homework and everything. Right now, I got to a point where I'm good enough at speaking the language that I don't have to practice it anymore, right? However, I'm still using it and I'm still learning. I'm still using the language, so I'm not gonna get rusty. But I'm not practicing anymore. I'm just using it. It's the same way. Eventually, you start to use perspective. You don't practice it anymore, you use it, and you're going to, yeah, I mean, you get to the point where it's like, yeah, like there's nothing else to learn here at this point, so I'm just gonna focus entirely on anatomy. And this is really all it takes. Like, drawing is not very complicated or confusing. It's actually really straightforward, and it's not hard at all. It just takes a little bit of time and patience, and most importantly, the knowledge. Like, once you have the knowledge, you don't need skill, you don't need to be talented, you just need the knowledge, and that's it. So hopefully you got a little bit of knowledge by watching this video. If you're also interested, you can check my one-on-one mentorships, which just basically means that I get to draw with you on calls. Like, once a week we hop on calls and we draw together. And the whole point, my whole idea with these mentorships is precisely that I brainwash you so you make the same decisions that I make. You get the knowledge that I have. Look, I'm not talented, and I'm still improving ridiculously fast every day. Like, I don't expect the like, literally daily improvement to ever stop because of the knowledge that I have. So what I'm offering you here is like a little bonus, because like I'm making these videos for free. I'm not gonna stop making these videos, but if you want a little bit of a boost, then you can learn from me directly and let me guide you into your art journey. So if you're interested, it's in the first link in the description. You can check it out. Anyways, I'm gonna be wrapping the video here. This was supposed to be a quick video, but I guess I ended up jumping a little bit. So yep, I'll see you in the next video.